successful and a holding again at all times.
Be careful.
Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident of the packet of grenades.
There are places out there that don't forget. Places that grip memory like a rusted nail through your hand. You don't remember their names, you remember the feeling. The woods around Clifton, Virginia have one such place. A cracked artery in the forest, 1 lane wide, suffocatingly narrow. Locals call it Bunnyman Bridge. Tucked down a forgotten stretch of Colchester Road, it's the kind of place that makes your bones hum before your ears catch up. It's not just quiet, it's held breath. As if the trees know something they're not telling. But that's not why it's famous. The bridge didn't earn its name for how it looks. It earned its name for what people say haunts it. They say it all started in 1904, when the state finally shut down a rotting relic of an institution, the Collins Asylum for the Criminally Insane. More mold than brick, bad wiring, even worse patients. They had names that slipped through floorboards and case files like smoke. When it closed, they loaded the worst of them onto the bus headed for Lorton Prison, but the bus never made it. Just past the bend near the railroad tracks, it crashed. The steel screamed, wood splintered, bodies flew like confetti. Some landed dead, some didn't. Lawmen came fast. Dogs, lanterns, desperation. They swept the woods, rounding up every loose thread. Everyone except Douglas Griffin. They say he was in for butchering his family with an axe, diagnosed with delusions, hallucinations, and either a pathological fear of rabbits or an obsession with them, depending on which dusty folder you want to believe. They hunted him for weeks, set traps, turned over brush. He slipped through them like a rumor. When they did find something, it wasn't him. Just a trail of blood and the mutilated bodies of rabbits. Dozens of them. Hung from trees, gutted, skinned, nailed to trunks like warnings or trophies, as if he was saying, "You're not hunting me, I'm hunting you." But then the story shifts. Teenagers dared each other to linger under the bridge at midnight. Some say they didn't come back. Others say their bodies were found strung up like the rabbits, eyes wide, mouths stuffed with fur. And every year Halloween brings someone bold enough or stupid enough to test the legend. And the bridge always takes its due. A whisper here, a movement just beyond the tree line there. A long shadow holding something sharp. The figure they described is always the same. Tall, thin, axe in hand, wearing what looks like a rabbit suit. So the questions hang heavier than the fog. Did the deranged Douglas Griffin survive the crash and live in the woods, taunting and targeting the young people around Clifton, Virginia? Or did he die that night in the woods and become something else? Something that haunts the bridge and the surrounding area? Is there something else entirely? A curse? Or a spirit acting as a guardian of the bridge, soaked in the sins of whatever happened out there in 1904? Or could it be something older, feeding off of the fear stitched into the bones of that place? Even now, people claim if you stand beneath that bridge on Halloween night and say his name 3 times, he'll come, axe in hand, rabbit ears drooping like a flag at rest, and a stare that feels like it remembers everything you've ever done wrong, waiting for you to try and run.
Bunnyman, Bunnyman,
Bunny. Oh, welcome back to the Dancing Toaster. Yes, this is Nelly, and yes, we love to wrestle with the intersection of faith and the paranormal here. Today we get to cover a totally different kind of creature that may or may not be a creature at all. This creature, the Bunnyman, is rooted in Virginian urban legend, and much of it is true. How much of it has to do with the opener? Well, stick around and we'll find out together today. I hope you like the true-crimey feel of the opener. It's something I do over on the Man-Eating Toaster. I've been having a lot of fun with that. That's the brand new member-exclusive show on my Patreon. If you're fascinated by cult deep dives, I highly encourage you to head on over there. It's a great way to support my work, and you're getting something in return. It's a win-win, I think. You can also support what I'm doing through PayPal or buymeacoffee.com. I'm working my shiny white behind off to bring you these episodes. If you're enjoying them, support the work any way you can, but that doesn't have to be financial if you can't afford to do that right now. You can leave me a like, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop a comment on there to feed the insatiable algorithm monsters. You can leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and above all else, you can keep telling others about the show. Share the show, tell others about it. That doesn't cost a thing, and maybe for my birthday in April, we can break through this plateau that I'm on and eventually get to a blurry creature territory. Who knows? We'll see what the Lord does. But enough housekeeping. You came here to hear about an axe-wielding Bunnyman hanging out in the woods of Virginia, and you're sick, and I love you for it. I had a roadmap for season 2, but I've kind of thrown out the roadmap. I've thrown it to the wind. I've been covering lesser known and less talked about stuff and having a lot of fun with it. There is plenty of time to talk about the big well-known legends of creatures and cryptids around the world. Some have wondered how long the season will be. I don't know. It's already looking like it'll surpass the first one. I think the first one only ended because we laid our foundation and then the holidays hit. So, we still got a lot of great stuff to cover pertaining to cryptids and creatures. I'm not in any rush, and I hope you aren't either. The biggest requests have been for Bigfoot and Skinwalker episodes. I assure you they're coming. The season won't end until we touch on those, so don't worry. Much like Jeff the Talking Mongoose from a few weeks ago, when I heard about the Bunnyman and Bunnyman Bridge, I knew I had to cover it. And since we covered some allegedly haunted bridges already with goat men on them, one even had an axe too, it just felt mandatory to talk about this axe-wielding Bunnyman in Virginia. Here we love creatures and cryptid-related stuff. Urban legends and local lore are great, but more than all of that, we love the truth. The truth is Bunnyman was real, but Douglas Griffin was not. Now, what do I mean? Well, today will be fun, I assure you.
What on earth are you talking about? You better not be misleading these nice people. There ain't no such thing as no Bunnyman.
Doctor, I'll be right. Welcome back, sir. I had a feeling that you'd be here, and I have a feeling you're going to enjoy today's show.
Forgive me if I find that highly unlikely. Knowing you're going to start telling me that Bunnyman is some failed government experiment that escaped.
Actually not. Not today, Doc. Today's urban legend has very little to do with anything paranormal or supernatural.
You mean to tell me I might have talked some sense into you over these last few weeks?
No, I didn't say all that. I'm just saying there's a lot of evidence that the Bunnyman is a very real urban legend, rooted very much in the physical world. But the opener, made up from all the lore surrounding him, all of the stuff about an asylum escapee named Douglas Griffin, all of that, I gotta say, is totally fabricated.
So Douglas Griffin don't exist?
That's right. The man Douglas Griffin is made up. He doesn't exist, and he never did. There is no historical records linking this man or that name to an asylum escapee or murderer, not a single legal case in Virginia for this guy. Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley spent years digging through local archives, police records, and newspaper articles, and he confirmed that, again, no such person ever existed. Neither did all those alleged murders around that very real bridge. The Douglas Griffin story, the escaped mental patient who murdered people near a real-life bridge and was supposedly never caught, is one of the many creative embellishments added over the years to this urban legend. It appears to have gained traction after the 1999 internet-era versions of the story were published on a ghost story website, Castle of Spirits, and other sites like it. These versions tried to retroactively anchor the story in early 20th century history. They invented names, dates, institutions that all sounded plausible, but in reality were entirely made up. So again, such a man never lived in Virginia. While doing this, Brian also determined he was never a patient at Collins Institution for the Criminally Insane. How could he be so sure? Well, because Collins Institution for the Criminally Insane is as real as Arkham Asylum.
What the heck's that supposed to mean?
What? Have you not seen any Batman movie or TV show in like the last 20 years? Heck, the comics are probably older than you are.
Shut your mouth. I ain't got no time for no Batman nonsense, you nerd.
I can't believe you don't know what Arkham is. You need more Batman in your life, Doctor. Oh my gosh. Elizabeth Arkham Asylum for the Criminally Insane is where Batman's villains usually get confined once he thwarts and captures them. It is, of course, as fictional as Batman. So too is Collins Institution for the Criminally Insane. There is no historical record of any asylum, hospital, or prison by that name ever existing in or around Clifton, Fairfax County, or anywhere else in Virginia for that matter. This name also seems to have first popped up in the internet-era versions of the Bunnyman legend, especially those circulating on the early paranormal forums and ghost story websites from the late 1990s and early 2000s. So no asylum, no escaped murdering mental patient,
And no weirdo hopping around in a bunny costume in the woods.
Well, hold on, Doctor, I didn't say all that.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the urban legend is in fact rooted in historical fact, though still shrouded in much mystery because no arrests were ever made. But there was in fact a man in a bunny costume seen taunting and threatening people throughout Fairfax. It was the kind of October evening that whispered bad things in hushed tones. The air was crisp, the sky bruised with twilight, and the woods of Fairfax County were already curling into their long seasonal sleep. That eerie silence that settles in when the trees know something you don't. Robert Bennett, a U.S. Air Force cadet, was just trying to make a memory. He and his fiancée had carved out a moment for themselves, just a quiet pull-off on Guinea Road, where the pavement ends and the world felt like it had forgotten how to care. It was supposed to be one of those still, forgettable nights, calm, empty, harmless. But the thing about silence is that it makes a heck of a stage for something loud. He stepped out from the tree line like a hallucination with weight. A man, or the outline of one, dressed in a white suit, ragged and furred like a kid's nightmare left out in the rain. Long, floppy ears hung from his head like wilted flags. His eyes didn't glow, but they didn't need to. He just stood there, watching. Then came the voice, sharp and angry, like gravel through broken teeth.
You're on private property. I got your tag number.
In one motion, he pulled back his arm and launched a hatchet through the car window, a perfect arc of madness. The glass exploded just inches from Bennett's fiancée. They didn't wait to ask questions. They hit the gas and left the white rabbit behind them, watching from the dark. When the police arrived, the man was gone. All that remained was the hatchet lying in the passenger floorboard, and a story so strange it felt like something pulled from the static between radio stations. The Washington Post ran the headline just days later, "Man in bunny suit sought in Fairfax." But headlines don't stop legends, they build them. In the weeks that followed, the sightings came like a slow fever. Another man, another axe, another corner of suburbia swallowed by the surreal. The story started to mutate as they tend to do. A former asylum, an escaped killer, gutted rabbits and Halloween rituals, a cursed bridge that breathes if you listen hard enough. It spread like a virus, not through bites or blood, but through imagination, the kind that festers in small towns, fed by silence and fear and too many shadows between the streetlights. And it all started right there. One couple, one axe, one deranged man dressed like a rabbit who stepped out of the dark like a punchline to a joke no one wanted to hear. But this wasn't the end. In fact, it wasn't even the strangest part. October 29th, 1970. The moon was a rusted coin in a black sky, and Fairfax County felt like it was holding its breath. It had only been 10 days since a hatchet shattered a car window and cracked the town's sense of normalcy. Just 10 days since a man in a bunny suit rewrote the rules of what could hide in the dark. And now he was apparently back. But this time, it wasn't lovers in a parked car. It wasn't teenage dares or backroad mischief. This time it was a construction site. Kings Park West, a place where dreams of picket fences and cul-de-sacs were still nailed together by moonlight. The witness? A man named Paul Phillips, a security guard. He's paid to watch for vandals, not monsters. He was doing his rounds that night, just like the training manual said. Flashlights sweeping across lumber stacks and unfinished doorways, eyes glazed by routine, until he saw him. Standing on the porch of an unfinished house was something that didn't belong. A figure, maybe 5'8", about 160 pounds, draped in a gray, black and white bunny suit. Like someone taxidermied the Easter bunny, gave him daddy issues and a sharp weapon, and sent him door to door spreading nightmares instead of candy. Not the kind of costume you buy for $20 from Party City. This one looked worn, lived in, like it had seen things and done things. And he wasn't just loitering either. The Bunnyman was holding a long-handled axe, and he was chopping at the front porch post like he was trying to murder the blueprint. Like if he hit it hard enough, the American dream would bleed out right there on the front steps. Wood chips flew like confetti on a funeral. Same weapon profile as before, same silent rage. The guy had a love affair with blades. And then, without missing a beat, he turned. He stared down Phillips with eyes you couldn't see, but somehow you still felt. Then, in a voice carved out of gravel and static, he snarled,
"All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm gonna bust you on the head."
Not exactly a Shakespearean soliloquy, but the message was clear. Phillips backed off, heartbeat in overdrive, fingers itching for the sidearm he kept in his vehicle. He ran to go get it, but when he came back, nothing was there. The Bunnyman had vanished, slipped into the night like smoke from a house fire. No footprints, no broken branches, no fur, no blood, just silence. Again. Phillips calmed down. Then he called it in. Fairfax County PD responded with a full lineup. 6 cruisers lit up the night like a crime scene Christmas tree. Cops combing through shadows, looking for footprints that didn't exist, and a man who may as well have been made of fog. They found no trace, no suspect, not even a boot print. The only thing left behind was a report. And in that report, a phrase that sounded more like a punchline of a fever dream than a line from an official police document.
"Large white rabbit at large."
Let that sink in. Taxpayer-funded paperwork calling a man in a bunny suit with an axe a rabbit at large. Somewhere in a dusty file cabinet, that sentence still exists. But behind the absurdity of it all, the facts were aligning, and they were ugly. 2 sightings, days apart. Same description, same weapon, same threats. This wasn't some Halloween prank gone too far. This was a pattern. And the Bunnyman, he wasn't just haunting Clifton anymore. He was carving out territory one porch at a time. As news of the second incident crept into the morning headlines and AM radio broadcasts, the panic went viral in a pre-internet kind of way. Was this some axe-happy lunatic with a pre-Tumblr furry kink? Was it a psychotic pranking drifter with a flair for performance horror? Or something worse? Residents locked their doors. Colchester Road went quiet after dusk, and the myth of the Bunnyman started to mutate, evolving further, becoming stranger, darker, and far harder to laugh at. Because when a man in a rabbit costume starts showing up with an axe and vanishing without a trace, it stops being folklore, it becomes fear. The line between fiction and fact was blurry, and Fairfax was already halfway down the rabbit hole. So the Fairfax County Police Department found itself caught in a game it hadn't trained for, chasing shadows and bunny ears. What started as two bizarre reports had snowballed into something far stranger. In the weeks following the Bennett and Phillips encounters, over 50 people contacted law enforcement claiming they too saw the infamous Bunnyman. The stories came in waves, some detailed, some deranged. A man in a white suit here, an axe in the woods there. In some accounts, they slid so far off the rails they landed somewhere between Campfire Tale and Acid Trip. People seeing the Bunnyman floating, laughing, whispering through the trees.
Some folks clearly just wanted attention.
I agree, Doctor. I can't rule that out with all of these. Others might have genuinely seen something, though. One particular report stood out, almost a carbon copy of the Phillips incident. It was another security guard, another housing development under construction. He said he saw a man in a tattered white bunny suit, chopping at a front porch with a hatchet like it owed him money. When the guard approached, the man allegedly turned, brandished the weapon, and snapped,
"You're trespassing. Come any closer and I'll chop your head off."
Same threat, same rhythm. Was it a copycat? Or was the Bunnyman making his encore performance? According to the report, after delivering the threat, the figure hopped into the woods.
He what? He hopped into the woods?
Yeah, hopped. I don't know what's more terrifying, seeing a grown man in a filthy rabbit costume threaten you with decapitation, or watching him bounce into the forest like some psychotic cartoon character returning to his hole in the ground. Either way, imagine being that guard. You go home, pour yourself a stiff drink, and say, "Honey, you're not going to believe what I saw tonight." Meanwhile, the Washington Post once again and other local newspapers began stoking the flames. Headline after headline. "Man in bunny suit sought in Fairfax. The rabbit reappears. Bunnyman back again." I'm sure they had the times of their lives writing those. Every article poured gas on the rumors and fear, keeping the public informed but also keeping them awake at night. The story had gone viral, again in a pre-internet kind of way. Word of mouth, printed ink, and shared glances at neighborhood watch meetings. For the Fairfax County Police, the case was turned into a rabbit hole with no bottom. Every call tied up resources, every new sighting added noise to the signal, making the truth harder to decipher. Officers struggled greatly to separate fact from fantasy, chasing leads that evaporated upon arrival. Beyond the original hatchet left behind in Bennett's car, they had no physical evidence. No footprints, no fur, no fingerprints, and the public? Well, they weren't calming down. They were locking their doors, canceling Halloween plans, glancing twice at every twitch in the woods, every snapped twig. The Bunnyman wasn't just a man anymore, he was a presence, a phantom. And law enforcement found themselves chasing not just a suspect, but a legend in real time.
This feels like a daggum bad horror movie.
I know, right? But all of it was documented, not only in the headlines, but multiple police reports. The Bunnyman scare didn't just rattle a few windows or spark a couple of ghost stories. It crept under doors, slipped into classrooms, and punched the school system right in the schedule. In the wake of the sightings, local schools reported a sharp spike in absenteeism. Parents were keeping their kids home from school, not out of rebellion or protest, but pure unfiltered fear. After all, it was the 1970s, a time when every kid allegedly walked 10 miles to school uphill both ways through blizzards and barbed wire, at least according to every dad from the time. And now they were too scared to pedal a bike down Guinea Road. The educational system stumbled, tripping over a story no one could quite prove, but everyone had heard. And in doing so, Fairfax got a crash course in how fast myth becomes memory. Police did what they could. The Fairfax County Police Department threw everything they had at it, manpower, man-hours, and more than a few cigarettes burned down to the filter in a squad car's front seat. They pursued every lead, combed through every call, tried to match every suspect description to someone, anyone with access to an axe and a taste for long ears and chaos. But the Bunnyman, whoever he was, had the most powerful weapon of all. He was good at vanishing. No footprints, no blood, no costume left behind in a ditch, just sightings and speculation. One article from the time captured the absurdity perfectly. From an 11-year-old named Jim Waters, he told reporters,
The story went from a guy in a white bunny suit with an axe who vandalized a couple of times to an axe murderer at the end of Guinea Road. As an 11-year-old, I couldn't give it any perspective.
First off, 11-year-olds don't sound like this anymore. They're all, "Skibbity toilet, Ohio." I don't know what any of them are saying these days. Then again, I don't know if 11-year-olds ever sounded like Jim Waters did here. He sounds like a divorced uncle who owns a bait shop and smokes menthols in the garage. In any case, his sentiments hit the mark. The legend had escalated from bizarre to blood-soaked, and it did so on the back of imagination and fear. Even the cops were starting to admit it. William L. Johnson, an investigator with the Fairfax PD, he summarized the frustration in an internal report.
After an extensive investigation, it is still unsubstantiated as to whether or not there is a white rabbit. Most sightings were reported by children and lack credible evidence.
In other words, we spent weeks looking for a psycho Easter bunny and came up empty-handed. The force was chasing smoke, and the town was still unraveling. Kids stopped riding their bikes, parents watched the woods like they were waiting for something to blink back. A collective paranoia settled in, not loud but steady, like the hum of power lines in your skull. Because fear once planted grows roots, and those roots change the way people live. That's the real power of an urban legend. It doesn't just live in your head, it lives in behavior, in choice, in the thousands of little moments where you second guess what should be normal. But a legend, any good legend, needs more than just fear to survive. It needs something a little more tangible. It needs a place to latch onto. A chunk of concrete or rust or wood where the story can sink its teeth into, and that's how the Bunnyman found his home. The final element from our opener, a very real bridge that really had nothing to do with the initial reports. A cracked railroad overpass deep in the woods outside Fairfax Station, 1 lane wide, covered in graffiti and surrounded by trees that creak just a little too much at night. Locals started calling it Bunnyman Bridge, and in that quiet, narrow tunnel, the line between fact and fiction finally collapsed. Not with a bang, but with a whisper, and the soft, rhythmic sound of an axe just out of sight. So again, the original 1970 Bunnyman sightings had not one word mentioned in them about a bridge. No tunnel, no railroad tracks, no Colchester overpass, just a man in a bunny suit with a hatchet and a grudge he carried like a loaded gun with the safety off, always ready, always pointed at someone. The incidents, Bennett, Phillips, the protesting rabbit hacking at porch posts like a lumberjack, all took place in Burke, not Clifton. The Colchester overpass, again, not a factor in any of these accounts. How did it become the haunted heart of the legend, I hear you asking? Well, we said it. Like a successful business, all great urban myths are about location, 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 folks.
So the reason they picked the bridge was just 'cause it looked creepy and haunted?
Yeah, that was really it. The century-old single-lane concrete tunnel hidden in the woods, framed by shadows and creeping vines, didn't even need to audition. It got the part right away. If you were designing the perfect horror movie set, you'd start with Colchester Overpass. It had everything a good legend needed. It was remote, isolated, the kind of place where cell signals go to die and whispers echo back twice. By the 1980s and 1990s, teens had already tied the tail to the bridge like a noose around its neck. The Bunnyman wasn't just a crazy furry anymore, although crazy and furry seems redundant, #steer clear of furries. They made him sound like a vengeful spirit more deadly than Freddy and Jason put together. But there is no verified record of anyone ever being killed at or near the Colchester Overpass, aka Bunnyman Bridge. No escaped mental patient, no furry phantom ever appeared on a Halloween night there. Unsurprisingly, because parents were keeping their kids back from trick-or-treating during that time, Halloween became prime Bunnyman time, but of course, this too spiraled out of control. The legend is now that if you stand beneath the bridge at midnight on Halloween and say his name 3 times, he appear, slit your throat, and leave your body dangling from the bridge like one of the skinned rabbits from the earlier myths. The whole go here, say this many times, these are typical urban legend tropes. But as much as many of these details attaching themselves to the legend are false, I still won't be found under this overpass summoning anything. But we'll come back to that later. You don't have to believe it, you just have to fear it. In Colchester Overpass, it became sacred ground for the legend. Kids dared each other to go there after dark. Some heard whispers inside the tunnel. Others swore they saw figures in the trees, watching, waiting, ears twitching in the dark. And somewhere along the way, news became myth. Myth became ghost story, and the Bunnyman became immortal. Folklore isn't as concerned with facts. Folklore feeds on fear. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to feel true. And yet, here's what makes the Bunnyman legend uniquely twisted. He was real, at least in part. There really was a mysterious man in a bunny suit that terrorized people with a hatchet in Fairfax County in 1970. He threatened, he vandalized, he vanished. To this day, nobody knows who he was. He might have been harmless. Was he out for fear, fame, both, neither? We don't know. And we never will. He might have just been a cranky guy in a costume with a flair for property damage and body odor. An Easter Bunny reject with the kind of rage that only grows where forests die and strip malls bloom. One of the most prominent theories is that he was a local resident, disturbed by the rapid transformation of Fairfax County in the early 1970s, where farmland was becoming split-level dreams and the quiet was being paved over one cul-de-sac at a time. Now, if that's true, he didn't just protest. He weaponized folklore. By threatening newcomers, by vandalizing empty developing homes, and by dressing like something pulled from Five Nights at Freddy's fan art, he created a story powerful enough to do what warnings couldn't: make people afraid to settle there. Genius in a way. Insane, yes, but effective. I picture him now, old, gray, sitting on a porch, hair whiter than his bunny suit, muttering to himself,
Worked better than a darn HOA.
The truth is, we may never know who he was. No fingerprints, no arrests, no names. The case is still officially closed, mostly because there's nothing left to chase. And unless someone dusts off the hatchet for a DNA test, it'll stay that way. But something tells me that the Chuck E. Cheese reject didn't leave paw prints either on the hatchet. The case is closed, but the legend, well, the legend is wide open, folks. It's still growing, still whispering through the trees by Colchester Overpass, still daring teenagers to see how close they can get before they hear something in the dark say, "You're trespassing." This grisly tale has many variations and has been retold by generations. Some versions focus on the escaped mental patient end, while others center on a man in a rabbit suit terrorizing trespassers. Even in a 1973 University of Maryland class paper, they recorded 54 different versions of the Bunnyman story, many keeping the core plot but changing details like the name of the killer or the location. In some tellings, the Bunnyman's ghost returns each Halloween. In others, there are additional murders or different motives. The legend evolved further through early internet times. By 1999, a widely circulated account on Castle of Spirits, that online ghost story archive, added false specifics, claiming the Bunnyman was that escaped inmate from 1904 and gave him a name and cited an old Clifton library for evidence, even though no such library ever existed. Folklorists note these historical inaccuracies as signs that the Bunnyman narrative is largely creative fiction. Despite this, the captivating and bizarre image of a murderous man in a rabbit costume has secured its place in Virginia's local folklore, spreading beyond Fairfax County and taking on a life of its own. As noted before, the absence of an arrest or clear motive allowed rumors to flourish. Bringing back Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley, he spent years tracking down every available record related to the Bunnyman. He verified that no murders had occurred, there was no asylum in Clifton to begin with, firmly debunking the central elements of the legend, as we said. The two 1970 incidents on Guinea Road in Burke were likely the origins, but they got mixed up with the eerie Colchester Road railroad bridge nearby, which teenagers already viewed as spooky to begin with. Thus, the mundane truth, a person in a bunny suit scaring people over development or trespassing, transformed into an enduring urban myth. In Connolly's words, "If there was ever a story that was ripe to grow and get a little bit strange, it has to be the Bunnyman." I couldn't agree more. Over the past few decades, the Bunnyman legend has left its imprint on pop culture in Northern Virginia and beyond. The Colchester Overpass in Clifton is now widely nicknamed Bunnyman Bridge, and even appears that way on Google Maps, by the way. The site has become a popular destination for paranormal enthusiasts and curiosity seekers, especially around Halloween time. Local authorities have had to restrict access to the area on Halloween night to prevent overcrowding and mischief. In one recent year, officers turned away over 200 thrill seekers from out of town who showed up hoping to spot the Bunnyman's ghost at the bridge. The legend has also been featured on numerous websites, creepy podcasts, and paranormal shows as one of America's creepiest urban legends. The Fairfax community has embraced the tale in a lighthearted way as well. The small town of Clifton, for instance, hosts an annual haunted trail event every October and has sold Bunnyman t-shirts to celebrate its resident spook. A local brewery even named itself Bunnyman Brewing, playfully using the legend as a theme for its branding and taproom decor. The story has inspired horror media, which should come as no surprise. An independent slasher film titled Bunnyman was released in 2011. It features a killer in a rabbit suit and even spawned 2 sequels, one in 2014, another in 2017. It clearly drew from the traditional creepy concept. While not directly based on the Virginia events, the film capitalized on the frightening juxtaposition of an innocent bunny costume in a murderous figure, a trope the legend made famous. Additionally, the Bunnyman has appeared in books and local ghost story collections, and even a rock opera created by a Northern Virginia band based on the myth. From campfire stories to internet forums and Halloween attractions, the Bunnyman's legacy endures as a mix of folklore and pop culture. It serves as a modern example of how a small kernel of truth can evolve into a widespread legend that continues to captivate imaginations around the world. But what about those that claim to have had a supernatural experience in and around the area?
Oh, come on, man. I thought we could end one on a more grounded note. Ain't that what this episode's supposed to be about?
Well, not necessarily, Doctor. I just wanted to point out that not every urban legend is built on fiction. Some are inspired by very real events that spiraled out of control. I also wanted to demonstrate not everything is crazy conspiracy or government cover-up. No creepy labs experimenting on bunnies deep beneath the earth on this one, though I'm sure it's happening somewhere. It has nothing to do with what's going on in Virginia, but there are many that claim to have inexplicable experiences around the area and even the bridge. The simplest explanation is because all the crazy stories and the lore surrounding Bunnyman in Fairfax, you go there full of stories and adrenaline, and your mind can definitely help you fill in the blanks. Then there are those simply seeking attention, going with smartphones and trying to go viral on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, whatever, claiming to have seen something or felt something.
I think I might be rubbing off on you.
But
Dadgummit.
there are those that claim to have had other experiences that are a little more vivid and seemingly supernatural. What are we to make of these stories without assuming they're all lying or just trying to get attention? There isn't really a Bible verse I can give you this time around for Bunnyman. But we do know that the kingdom of darkness is very real. Demons and fallen angelic beings are a common theme here, and we know they are at work all the time in the world around us. I firmly believe that these intelligent spiritual beings use the information they gather on us from years of watching us. A large pattern we see a lot on this show, common threads from one culture to the next, but some tend to take on a local or cultural flair or flavor. If I'm a spiritual being trying to strike fear into the heart of Virginians, it just makes sense to appear as something they're already afraid of. Plus, if you didn't know that all the asylum and mental patient stuff was false, then these entities would be aiding in the spreading of the lies. Another thing that they're very fond of doing. But they're so crafty that they are just as successful when certain things are proven false. What do I mean? Well, when people like my esteemed colleague Dr. Wright find one legend proven to be false, they love to lump in all these other spectacular and hard-to-explain tales and say,
See, they must all be false.
I don't sound like that.
well, we'll agree to disagree this time, Doctor. This isn't intellectually honest. If you got 12 stories about something and prove one to be false, that doesn't automatically mean the other 11 are false. In any case, I'm by no means convinced that there is a humanoid bunny demon running around the woods of Virginia. Though deceptive spirits can very much use our cultural imagery and stories against us to instill fear. Though I'm open to be convinced otherwise, the legend was based on true events that I think people and spirits have had way too much fun adding to. Believe it or not, today that's really all I got for you. I definitely would not recommend going under the bridge and saying the name multiple times or anything like that. When you go out looking for supernatural occurrences, you don't know what's gonna answer the door when you go a knocking, so I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not saying it's the equivalent of a Ouija board, I'm just saying I wouldn't do it. But there isn't much more to be said about the Bunnyman of Virginia. Growing up on Looney Tunes, it took a lot of self-control not to bust out with some Bugs Bunny for you today, maybe next time, although I can't think of another time it'll fit in. There aren't really any other large bunny stories out there, another reason this episode may feel a little short, least of all man-like bunnies running around. I'm not gonna lie, one of the reasons I picked this story was because Easter's around the corner and I hate the Easter Bunny. If you see some poor sap in a bunny costume next month, please resist the urge to run, and please resist the urge to punch him in the face. I thank you once again for going down this rabbit hole with me. I know today was a little different. You guys know this is not a debunking type of channel, but we do value truth. And the truth is, the real Bunnyman was a weirdo in a suit. So we gotta call a spade when we can find it. I pray you still enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed putting it all together for you. If you did enjoy yourself, you know where you can support my work, mainly on buymeacoffee.com, or sign up for the Patreon, gain access to the new show. Last month we did a deep dive on Heaven's Gate. Last week we did part 1 of our deep dive on Scientology. Part 2 is coming out this Friday. But again, if you can't support financially right now, you know how to click a like or share button somewhere. That's always free, and it always helps. I can tell folks the show is great, but it means so much more coming from you guys, so please hit like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, drop me a review, do all the things wherever you consume the Dancing Toaster. But whatever you do, don't consume toasters, and don't let creepy, fur-suited wearing weirdos consume you. I love you. I'm out.
Report suspicious activities and call 911 for immediate response. Expect delay.
Nobody else will be taken from the south. Stand by.
Flight 022. Maintain approach. You're clear for movement.
Expect traffic delay and restrictions. Take personal security precautions to avoid becoming a victim of an attack. Avoid crowded public area gatherings. Not travel in areas affected by the attack or in a known area elevated virus activity. Keep emergency supplies accessible and a holding a gas at all times.
Be careful.
Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident.